So we actually have a variety of programs for the Esports Association. One is career readiness. So we actually work with the Career Center here to better prepare our association members to learn those life skills that they are going to need so that when they make that transition over to a career pathway.
Awesome, awesome. This guy, we gotta turn around. This guy wins almost every tournament we throw. I'm telling you. You gotta watch him live. He's gonna be something big. I'm telling you.
CSUDH Esports Association is centered in 4 domains: academics and research, community engagement, competition, and entertainment.
We're trying to make sure that the students are prepared for the future, that they understand the diversity that media offers now, and again, look beyond the traditional outlets.
They can gain fieldwork, partnerships, as well as potential job opportunities and in both the higher education and K-12 fields.
We believe that esports is a strategy and not an outcome. Our association is here to help anyone that is willing to learn how to take your gaming skills to the next level through a supporting community. If you are looking to showcase your production talents to help support our esports teams, then this is the association for you. We host online and on-site tournaments that will allow our members to showcase their competitive spirit. Our association broadcasts out our competition and practices to entertain our community as well as our global audience. We believe that by joining us, you will come out of the association feeling transformed and better prepared to transfer your skills into your career. Join today and begin to explore endless opportunities through our Esports Association here at Cal State Dominguez Hills.
Hello, welcome everyone to another esports talk session. And with us, we have 2 very special guests. But before I introduce them to you all, I just want to give a quick announcement, and that is to thank you, those that are viewing, those that are tuning in live and also in post. Just a quick reminder that we do have various social media outlets there and channels. If you give us a follow, a like, a comment, all of that helps us in the work that we're doing to bring more programming like this. Now, without any further ado, let me introduce the topic today. Today is how to prepare for career success. This is an esports talk session. And with us today, we have Denise and Kenneth, who's going to introduce themselves and share a little bit more of what they do. But Denise and Kenneth, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
Excellent, excellent. So I want to just dive right into it, and that is if we can start by you sharing what it is that you guys do and who you work with in the organization.
Denise, you want to go ahead?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I work for North Orange Continuing Education, which is located in Anaheim.
Nice.
We're part of North Orange County Community College District. So we have Cypress College, Fullerton College, who are our 2 sister colleges. And I work in the Career Center, where I coordinate all of our workshops. We also help students with their resume, cover letters, interview preparation, LinkedIn accounts, and we also host industry workshops. So I've been there for the past 9.5 years.
Wow, amazing, Denise. Thank you so much for sharing. And the work that you're doing with students there too. That's really big, which we definitely want to dive into. Kenneth, if you don't mind sharing.
Sure. So it's always a bit convoluted when I try to explain who I work for because it's not exactly clear cut. But basically, I am a special projects manager with the North Orange County Regional Consortium for Adult Education, which I know is a mouthful. But basically, we support all adult education in the North Orange County region. We're funded by the California Adult Education Program. It used to be known as AEBG, or the Adult Education Block Grant. It's a funding of about $500 million that was set aside to support adult education across the entire state. So basically, we support all of our adult education providers in North Orange County, including North Orange Continuing Education, which was who Denise works for. That's one of our main providers. And because of that, I actually worked very closely with Denise in the Career Resource Center there. And then our other main provider is North Orange County ROP, the North Orange County Regional Occupational Program. So that's one of our other providers. And so basically, as part of my role, I support all of the consortium operations, mostly with budgets and contracts and things like that. But I used to be the special projects manager for CTE, Career Technical Education. And in that role, that was when I worked very closely with Denise. And we actually worked really closely in helping get that Career Resource Center up and going. And so I worked pretty closely with her and working with students, developing the workshops, working one-on-one with students, and helping develop their career pathway plan, and helping them put their resumes together, helping them prepare for interviews, helping them job search, things like that. So that's where my experience in that area is. So yeah, that's basically it.
That's amazing. Gosh, the work that you both do to help essentially just getting our students ready and prepared for the career pathway. So again, the main focus, again, it's career success. Like, and when you really think about that, what is that first step as you are your student, you're finalizing the last of your year and you're getting yourself ready? How do you especially get yourself into feeling that you're gonna be prepared to launch off?
Well, you definitely need to have, obviously, the job in mind that you want to do,
Okay.
and know that field, and then maybe start job searching or volunteer.
Oh.
So by volunteering or by doing internships, you'll get that hands-on experience that you truly need to be successful, and it kind of gives you it kind of gives you a feel for what the field will be like.
Mhm.
It also will help you get your feet wet, because you'll get to know other people, you'll get to network. So that's one of like the first things that I would recommend students to definitely do: volunteer or do an internship. And then obviously from there, once you're almost done, really making sure that you have a resume ready. And really, a resume should always be ready. Making sure that you're constantly updating your resume with like classes that you're taking or new skills that you have acquired. And again, having that LinkedIn profile is really important. A lot of the time, we don't realize how important it is, because that's another means for us to really network, get to know other professionals, talk to other people that might help us. And as a student, you can play the student card, which is wonderful. A lot of people are not going to turn you down because they know that you're a student and they want to help you.
Excellent. Gosh, Denise, so true. And I like that you mentioned, even, LinkedIn, for example, like how you even help them provide some of that profile building. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit more about that, how does one get started? Is it just, hey, I have a LinkedIn, or hey, you're encouraged to create one so that you can transfer what it is that you have? Walk us through that process a little bit, if you don't mind.
So with LinkedIn, we really encourage students to create an account.
Mhm.
And we in the Career Center have developed a LinkedIn bootcamp workshop series,
Okay.
where we break each step, because sometimes it could be a lot and it's overwhelming. And so maybe just creating your headline or adding a picture to your profile. So little steps, right?
Right.
But it's really important, because again, once you have your LinkedIn profile, a lot of the time students are like, oh my gosh, I got to connect with someone that I never thought I would,
Mhm.
really, especially now with COVID, right?
Right.
Be able
Right.
to. And so, but it's really like breaking it down so that it's not as difficult, and coming up with a story, something that will entice another individual who's reading your profile and be like, okay, we understand you, we know where you're coming from, we can relate. So the headline is very important for us. And then, making sure that you add your work history, your education. We have many students that come from different countries.
Okay.
So their education is very extensive.
Right.
We always let them know, make sure you add that experience, or even if you have experience from any other country or volunteer experience, include that onto your LinkedIn profile.
Gosh, that's so cool. And that you guys do that. Very, very strategic and very innovative, to get people out there in the social space and then connecting with other people from around the world. And if I may ask, just to elaborate a little bit more, um, connecting or creating this LinkedIn profile, to build the network piece. When a student comes to you and say, "Hey, this is some of my background. How can I word it, or how can I take something that I've done in the past to be something that would be attributes that would be marketable skills?" Um, is that something that you commonly get as a question? Are you guys doing full assessment interviews with the students to understand a little bit more? Because I immediately, when you go through it, I don't think everybody's always jotting down, oh, this is what's going to be on my resume.
Mhm.
What are some of these maybe good practices to start establishing now so that you can start thinking about resume building?
We do work with students one-on-one. And that's the best way to really help a student to really understand where they're coming from and to learn their history, their background. We have created different templates where we ask them to maybe write down what their biggest strengths are, their skills. And those could be technical skills, they could be soft skills, people skills. And so, and that's how we help the student generate their profile, right?
Right.
Their headline, and obviously add those skills onto their LinkedIn account. Um, they don't really typically come asking is this something that I should write or add? It's almost like, I don't know where to start. Can you help me? So that's
Right.
the reason why we have decided to just break everything down. So we'll meet with a student multiple times just to make sure that we get it down
Right.
and that they feel comfortable, and it's really their story. It's not us trying to retell their story.
Mhm.
And then making sure that we add those onto again their profile. And then the nice thing about LinkedIn too is that if they're looking for jobs, there's that easy apply where they can find a job, apply through LinkedIn, which is really safe and convenient. And so that's how we do it.
Yeah, and then Ruben, just to add to that, going back to your question about what tools do we use to help students articulate their skills and experience. There's actually a really cool tool that we use called Career Coach. And what's great about Career Coach, and there's probably other similar tools like it online that you can find, but basically what you do with Career Coach is you plug in, say, a position that you had, customer service representative, or a program that you took in school, like medical assistant. You plug that in, and then it'll spit out a bunch of skills that are relevant to that field, or relevant to that position that you previously held. Because a lot of times it takes looking at what the adjectives are or what the skills are to jog your memory and say, oh yeah, I know how to do that. I learned how to do that at my last job, or I learned how to do that in this course. A lot of times, you don't, like you were saying, Ruben, you don't necessarily write these things down or have them in the written down somewhere, all the things that you've learned throughout the course of your academic career or your your work experience.
Right.
So just being able to see, visualize and see those terms, to describe those skills that you learned is really helpful. And all you do is just click a plus button next to it, and it adds it to your resume. Because a lot of the same principles and techniques that you would use to build a resume, you're going to use to build your LinkedIn profile, because your LinkedIn profile is kind of just like a social media version of your resume, more or less. There's a lot more elements to it than that, but at its core, that's kind of what it is. Yeah.
Excellent. And then just, getting to, the esports aspects of it, there's a lot of career technical skills, infused within the esports strategy and outlet. Have you essentially help embellish a little bit so that way they can see, hey, these are the skills that you're taking away? What would be some that you can share to our community that right now could be thinking, hey, this is resume building time, because many of them are going to be graduating very soon and need to start, putting on the gears a little bit more out there and starting to build their resume so that they can go out there. What would be some of those key, let's say, adjectives to describe that you can transfer out? And maybe Ken, if you don't mind shedding some light.
Sure, I'll do as best as I can. But so I'm trying to, yeah. So from what I understand of esports, and I'm thinking of some of the related fields. So any experience that you might have with social media, digital marketing, creative writing, Photoshop skills, content marketing, graphic design, any experience that you might have had, whether it was a course that you took where you learned how to use Photoshop, a graphic design course you might have taken, a writing course that you might have taken, anything along those lines where you can articulate the experience, the skills that you learned in those courses. That those are all, I think those would be great things to put on a resume if you're shooting for a position in esports or want to break into the esports industry. But I want to touch on something Denise mentioned earlier, which was the importance of internships and volunteer work. Because that aspect is, I think, especially important. It's actually important really almost in any industry that you're looking to break into, but especially for esports. One of the things I've seen in what I've read about, how to break into this industry is that, and it's unfortunate that it is this way, but it's this way in a lot of industries where you're probably going to have to prepare yourself to work for free for a little bit. And what I mean by that is looking at those internships and those volunteer opportunities, because that's how you're going to gain the experience, and that's how you're going to get those networking opportunities. There's so many benefits that come from those internships and those volunteer opportunities, because you gain that experience that you're able to put on your resume. You can put that experience on your resume, and it is relevant experience to the industry. And it doesn't require the kind of rigor that you need to go through to get an actual salary position in the industry. Because from what I've seen and what I've read, it's pretty rare that people just jump into a salaried, career type position in the esports industry. It almost always starts with an internship, volunteering, even just a lot of social media activity, getting your name out there, putting together a blog, or being active on Twitter and having your stuff retweeted. It usually starts in that area, and it rarely starts with you just jumping into a career like that.
Yeah, it almost, yeah, you're absolutely right, kind of thing. Thank you for shedding some light. And that's a big key component, is making sure that, yes, we are promoting the internship experience side. And more than ever, having, hey, as you're getting your education, you're also matching it with experience, and having those two go hand in hand at that synchronous timeline. So it's not, in essence, hey, I'm going to get my education, then later on I'll get my experience. If you can do best of both at the same timeline, then you're in a space where you're really working for a network. It's not necessarily quote unquote free. You are gaining something.
Right.
It's just more for the network opportunity to actually give you that foundation, so that you can platform off into that space, which is something that you get to decide whether or not you want to pursue, given that you've got some experience under your belt. But absolutely, I love that you shared that, and you too, Denise, because yeah, the internship piece, I mean, that's something that, even for alumni that will come back and say, gosh, if there's one thing I regret, is I wish I'd done more internships, and in some cases it's like, you only hope that some of these classes have some embedded field-based project of some sort that really pushes you to go out, right, and get those internship spots or get that experience out there, so that you can come back and unpack your findings from it all. But and then as far as I hear that you encourage internships. Do you guys have essentially internship programs yourselves, where you help students that, hey, you know what, I do know an organization that's doing this, that you might be interested, falling along the lines of what you're promoting in your resume that you like to do, could be a good match opportunity? Is that something that you two do currently?
We do have maybe one or two programs that do have an internship component.
Okay.
But if there's not one embedded into the program, then we always look for volunteering opportunities. So we do help students specifically. And then when it comes to esports, there's so many options, because there's so many branches that students can go into.
Right.
Maybe they're interested in software developers or game designing,
Right.
or podcasting. There's again, there's so many that I think that if students were to really go to their career center staff,
Yeah.
talk to them and say, I'm interested in this field specifically, maybe an analyst. Can
Right.
you help me? You know, do you have any connections? Or maybe even through LinkedIn, right? You
Right.
just
Yeah.
start looking for people and specifically within that field. You send them a message, you know, I'm a student, I'm looking for, you know, experience. I'm willing to, you know, like Kenny said, work for free or volunteer, right?
Right. Right.
Help me out. How can I, you know, get some of those connections going? So again, just by reaching out, and I know it's difficult for students to do that. We get it. We were students once.
Mhm.
But if you just, you know, forget about that, because you know that in the long run, that's really going to help you. It's going to only bring more benefit to you, and you're going to gain that experience that you really need. So networking could be a little bit sometimes uncomfortable if you're a little shy. But just, you know, doing that will really be of great help to you. So there's so many branches that you can go into within esports that we don't always think about. But again, like Kenny said, if you volunteer and you realize that, you know what, broadcasting is not for me, maybe I want to do something else, maybe I want to stream my games.
Right.
Then go ahead, you know, you're trying different things before you complete your degree. Because
Right.
it happens to all of us where we have a change of heart. You're like, yeah, I thought I really wanted this, but you know what?
Right.
Really for me.
Yeah. Right
It's
there.
all up, right?
And
Yeah.
just to add to that, a couple of online resources that I think you know are pretty important and valuable are there's a website called idealist.org. There's a lot of internship and volunteer opportunities there. But if we're talking about esports specifically, there's and I'm sure Ruben, you've heard of this website, hitmarker.net.
Right.
Yeah, so hitmarker.net is basically it's an entire website dedicated to careers in esports, and that's where, you know, esports companies go and post positions, but there's also a lot of internships and freelance and all kinds of positions that are up that are posted on Hitmarker.
Right.
So if you're looking for opportunities in esports specifically, that is a great resource to look at. So, and as Denise mentioned, of course, LinkedIn, that's another really great resource for looking for internships and volunteer opportunities.
Excellent. Excellent. See, and I love that, you know, again, you guys have this plethora of getting everybody ready. It's almost like you guys are the ones that are calming somebody down, right? If they're panicking, what am I going to do now that I'm close to finishing? I'm sure you guys have had cases like that. And so in even finding where to find these positions, it's a challenge in of itself too. Unless you hear about it from a resource center like yourselves, and then at the same time, or you know, from a network that you made a connection with. Now, as far as like, hey, I'm building a resume, now it's time for, okay, resume got reviewed, got looked at, I'm moving on to the next stage. Here comes the interview time. Is that something that you guys also help prepare students for?
Definitely.
Awesome. Awesome.
We have interview preparation workshops, but we also conduct mock interviews.
Mock interviews,
Or
great.
we do like we could do one-on-one, or two of our staff members with one of the students. So basically what we do is we research the field or the job specifically that they're going to be interviewing for. And we build on our own question. So then we ask the students the question, the typical number one question is like, tell me about yourself. The students are struggling, like, so remember that question is when they ask you that, nothing personal. They don't want to know about your family, your personal life, whether you're married, not married. They really want to know how your experience is relevant to that position that you're applying for. Right. And not only your experience, but your education, right? So by conducting these mock interviews, it's really helpful because we get to give feedback to students, and they get to answer the question. If they feel like, you know, I probably should have added a little bit more, or I gave too much information, they get to restate it again, and we get to practice. Sometimes we do 2 or 3, depending on how much time we have. But if they have a mock interview, let's say 2 days from now, they call us, they make an appointment. We really don't have a lot of time, so we only do 1 mock interview. But
gotcha.
That's to help a lot of students. Through the mock interviews, we've had many students land jobs, and then they call us or they email us, thank you so much, this was really helpful, I couldn't have done it without you.
Yeah.
So just really practicing. We tell them the more you practice, the better.
Not only
Um,
that, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, but I just wanted to add, yeah, not only that, but if you think of an interview as like a test, it always helps to obviously to have the questions that are going to be on the test before you go and take the test, right?
Right.
So that's what we try to do. We try to anticipate what questions are going to be asked in the interview based on what type of position it's for and in what industry. But there's also a really great trick that I think would be great to share with everyone is if you go on Glassdoor, I'm sure Ruben, you've probably heard of Glassdoor. It's an app, but it's also a website where you can go on. It's almost the way I would describe it, it's like the inverse of Yelp, where like Yelp, you go on and review a business that you've been to, and you assign them a star based on your experience as a customer. Glassdoor is a website where you can go and interview a business as an employee. You can also post about what your experiences were like working there, but also people post the questions that they got in their interviews when they interviewed for a position with any given company. And so what you can do is go on Glassdoor, search the company that you're going to be interviewing for, and you'll find that in some cases, people have posted the interview questions that they've gotten when they interviewed with that company. So you'll be able to see what kind of questions that company asks,
Right.
and you'll be able to anticipate how to answer those questions. And like Denise was saying, the more you practice, the better, because it's like, like I said, just taking a test. The more you practice, the more, you get those answers hardwired in your head. The easier the interview is going to go, and the more natural and authentic you're going to sound as you answer those interview questions. And sorry, Denise, continue what you were saying. Yeah.
Language. Your language is also very important because it's the way you're projecting yourself. So obviously, if you're slouching or you're looking down, that shows that you're not confident, right? So we also cover the basics of like body language and making sure that you are looking at the person. You're making eye contact, that you're not fidgeting with your hands. Like those minor little things that we tend to forget once we're nervous, because job interviews tend to be a little bit
nerve-wracking.
So.
Yeah.
It's all good. Yeah.
But it's so just covering everything, like making sure that you research the company, their mission, their vision, what are they known for? Have they been recognized for something? And really, why do you want to work for them?
Right.
They'll ask you that, like, sometimes, most of the time they'll ask like, why do you want to work for so and so? And if you're not prepared, it's almost like, I don't know. Not emphasize enough. Make sure that you do research the company,
right?
That you really know what they stand for, and then make sure that your values also go hand in hand with their values too.
Right. That's good, Denise. And this is a question for both of you, like especially now because of COVID. I mean, it's maybe a higher volume of virtual interviews. How is that any different, if you don't mind sharing a little bit?
It's very different.
Good to know. Yes.
Well, depending, right? If it's a panel interview, where there's several people that are going to be interviewing you, we always say make sure that you're looking straight at the camera. We don't tend to look straight at the camera, right? So just by looking at the camera, straight into the camera, which is a little uncomfortable because even me doing it right now feels kind of funny. But just looking straight at the camera and then acknowledging everybody, making sure that there's no background noise, because if that happens a lot, right? There's dogs barking.
I was just gonna say, pets.
Your child running around screaming. There's a lot going on. So making sure that your background is clean. There's not, sometimes we get to see other things that we shouldn't. So, and again, just addressing being a good listener, because you have to be a good listener, making sure that you're answering the question completely. And that goes, to both in-person and virtual interviews. But again, sometimes it could be a little bit difficult because you're nervous. So you might not be paying attention. So making sure that you're answering, again, the question in incomplete answers. Yeah. And so, Kenny, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, I mean, there are a lot of, sure, there are those differences, but there's actually, I would say there's actually a lot of similarities between, in-person interviews and Zoom interviews. Everything, all the advice that Denise just gave about, answering the question fully and, researching the company, making sure that you have your, you're preparing yourself appropriately and, being professional. Just that all that applies to Zoom interviews as well. And with Zoom interviews, it's just that extra element of making sure that you're in a professional environment when you're giving the interview. Like Denise said, you want to make sure there's no distractions in the background. You want to make sure there's no background noise. You want to make sure you're in a quiet place. You want to make sure that you're in a place where there's nothing weird going on behind you in terms of like things that you can see in the background that might betray the professionalism that you're trying to that you're trying to impart. So it's just it's just about maintaining professionalism and going with the same exact advice that we would give anybody sitting down for an in-person interview. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Yeah, it's very telling, and even like what just again facing COVID right now. What is the number one question that you would say is being asked that is COVID related, let's just say, that you've heard from employers or feedback from students?
Well, they always want to know if the job is going to be remote.
Right.
Yeah.
True.
Right. Yeah.
I'll be working from home, and it really depends on the job, right? I mean,
Right.
some industries will require you to like be there presently, and others it's more administrative. Then I guess you can do that more from home. But that's the number one question that I've gotten.
Okay. Very good. Kenneth, anything to add?
Yeah, I think I had to defer to Denise on this because Denise has been working with the students more directly recently. But as far as like, I don't know about COVID related questions that are coming from employers. I would imagine a question that probably comes up a lot is like Denise mentioned, if the employer has a position that it requires, a physical presence, like someone to come on site. I imagine a question that probably comes up a lot is, is that something that you're comfortable with, or is that something that you're willing to do, is to be physically present to do this work? And that's obviously going to be up to the individual and whether that is something that they're comfortable with. If it's not something you're comfortable with, then you probably want to look at other opportunities. Again, that's I have to imagine that's probably one of the questions that gets asked a lot. Yeah.
Excellent. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And just if you don't mind, just diving a little deep right now in how did you guys get started in wanting to pursue the line of work that you're doing? I mean, that in itself is very interesting, how you're helping others really get to their goals.
Well, I thought I wanted to be a teacher.
Nice. Okay.
So I went and I got my bachelor's in child and adolescent development, thinking, yep, I want to be a kinder, maybe second grade teacher.
Right.
But everything changed, especially within the state. All the standards started changing, and they were more focused on the standardized testing. And I thought, do I really want to do this? So then I decided to take a break, a 1-year break, and then I went back to get my master's in counseling.
Okay.
Because I thought, okay, you know what? Maybe I can be a counselor to like high school students, motivate them, specifically our Latino students. Obviously, I'm from Orange County, and I thought, they can really, maybe if I can help them get motivated and find a career that they're really like passionate about. So that's how I started. I finished my master's and everything, and then I started working for a school, an elementary school in Santa Ana, and then I found North Orange Continuing Education. It's obviously I'm not working as a counselor, but I do get to help students on a daily basis. It's not just helping students, but we get to do a lot of things, right? We're coordinating, we're overseeing budgets too. There's a lot of grants that come into the school, and so making sure that we meet those objectives. But overall, it's just a passion that I have to like really want to help students, especially our adult learners.
Right.
At the time they're either changing careers or sometimes we get the really young students who are like, I really don't know what to do. I want to do this and that. So
Right.
it's like let us help you find again your niche, your passion. So that's how I came into this field.
Nice. Nice. Thank you for sharing. That's awesome. Kenneth, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so for me, networking actually plays a big role in my story. So I majored in political science in college, and for me, it was always about making a difference. I wanted to make a difference in some way, and at first, I thought that was going to be, possibly through politics. It's going back to the comment you made earlier, Ruben, about people who look back on their years in college and really regret not doing the internships and doing the volunteer work and gaining that experience. That was me, basically. I did my undergrad. I didn't do any internships or volunteer work while I was in college. And I basically ended up having to do unpaid internships and other volunteer work for a couple of years after I graduated. So for the first couple of years after I graduated, I was, just doing work for free, a lot of work, a lot of internships, a lot of volunteer work. But that's how I networked. I made a lot of contacts within like the political organizing, kind of field. And I ended up getting my first adult job, I guess so to speak, career position as a director of a political operation in Arizona. It was kind of a temporary thing, but it was my first kind of salaried,
Yeah.
now we're making adult kind of money kind of thing. And yeah, so I did that for a while. But I kind of got burnt out on it. It's if you know of anyone or have heard of what it's like to work in that field, it's very grueling, very demanding. Like we're talking 80, 90-hour work weeks. The pay isn't that great. Not that that really mattered for me, but also it's not very stable because once the election's over, that's it, you're out of a job.
Right.
So after the election of 2012, I kind of took a detour and I worked for a small commercial printing equipment business, which I initially intended to only be like a temporary thing while I figured out what I really wanted to do. But I ended up doing that for 5 years, and I was not very satisfied with that, with that work. I wanted to go back to doing something that I felt, made a difference and that satisfied me. But I ended up connecting with a friend of mine who worked for the North Orange County Regional Consortium. And he told me about a position that had opened up for a career pathway specialist, which is who Denise, the position that Denise works with now. Like those are the people who work in the Career Resource Center helping students one-on-one, and she kind of manages those people. But that position opened up, and he encouraged me to apply for it. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to get this job. Like I have no experience in education. But whatever, I'll give it a shot. And it's not, what's the worst that can happen? They're not going to, like, they don't call me, like whatever. That's just how it goes. So I applied for it. To my surprise, ended up being offered an interview. To my further surprise, ended up being offered a job. So that was a part-time position that I did for about a year and a half. And then again, throughout that time, it's only a part-time position, but I'm networking. I'm forming great relationships with the people that I work with. And then so ultimately, a position opens up for a special projects manager for CTE. Again, I apply for that position, not thinking there's no way I'm going to get this position. I don't have enough experience. There's no way, but I'll apply for it. There's no harm,
harm.
right? So I apply for it. Again, to my surprise, I get an interview. And then again, to my surprise, I ended up being offered the position. And I think what played a huge role in that was like the networking that I did, which is, I think people have a misconception maybe about what networking is. I think maybe some people view it as like, oh, you go to a networking event and you trade business cards, and that's what networking is. Right. Well, actually, networking is really anything. Like any person that you're connected with, that's a network. Whether they're your friend, whether they're a fellow student, whether they're a family member, whether they are a professor, if you're working right now, if there's someone that you work with, that's all your network. And I'm sure pretty much anyone listening to this probably has a really great network that they can tap into that they probably didn't even know about. So in this case, the way I got into education was a friend of mine, a really close friend of mine that I went to high school with. you know, told me about this position and that I otherwise would not have known about. And that's how I ended up applying for it. And then in that position, I just formed really great relationships with the people I worked with. And when I applied for the special projects manager position, they gave me a great recommendation. And I feel like that has to be what got me the job, because I don't know that I would have gotten the position otherwise if you know, just on the basis of my experience. I needed those people to vouch for me, and they did.
Right.
And you know, that's another way. You know, it's just about forming good relationships with the people that you work with and the people that you interact with on a daily basis. And that's what helps you build your network.
No, right on. Gosh, Kenneth, thank
Yeah.
you for sharing your journey with us, because
Yeah.
you know, and you too, Denise. Like what I'm hearing too is, you know, as much as possible, yeah, the resume is one component, but it really can't go empty-handed without, you know, a network. You know, getting yourself out there and feeling comfortable, and even starting off even earlier before you're in college, even in your high school time, to take, you know, the services of a guidance counselor very seriously, to start informing yourself now. So by the time you get into that college space or that higher ed space, you're able to utilize those resources, and see how you can grow and expand from it. Because yeah, your network is going to help you in a time where you're navigating the waters of what is it that you want to do next, or what is your interest is in the first place. Um, but right on. I mean, yeah, and very much in relation to esports, you know, there are multiple pathways in where you're building your network, and I guess sometimes it's just a matter of intently seeing it a little bit more. Sometimes we overshadow what it is that we're doing, and we need a little bit of help from an outside or a third party perspective to say, hey, I'm going to bring this to Denise because I can tell her what I'm doing in a day to day. And Denise can pull out, hey, these are great opportunities where you're building your network, taking attributes that can translate on paper or on your LinkedIn profile, and start building yourself for that career success pathway that ultimately is where everyone is trying to get to. It's why we go to school in the first place. So fantastic. Gosh. Well, I wanted to share. We're closely coming to that time, and this is where I ask our guests to give us some words of wisdom to our viewers, to our audience out there, especially on around this topic. If you could, maybe if I could ask you, Denise, to start us off with some words of wisdom, to drive us home, and then we'll follow up with you, Kenneth.
Yeah, definitely. Like Kenny said, I think that make sure that as a student you utilize the different resources that the school has.
Yeah.
The more you do that, the better, because again, you get to know people. A lot of the time, we have students that come to us all the time. We know them by name. We see them on the hallways. They call us, they email us, and we have established some type of relationship with them. So whenever I hear about a job opportunity, the first thing I think about is like them. Oh, I know a great person that would like be wonderful for this position, right? So I think establishing those relationships with your school staff is really important. Sometimes you don't know how important that is. You know, don't just go to them whenever you need something or help, but just what do you think about this? Or I want to do this. Do you think this would be a good thing for me? I mean, obviously, once you have established a relationship with them, they'll know you, and then they'll be able to kind of talk things through with you. My recommendation is just make sure that as a student, you utilize all the school services that the school has. They have so many resources. I was looking up at Dominguez, and I actually got my master's from Dominguez.
Hey, go Doros.
So they have a lot of resources, and now everything is being done virtually.
Yep.
So sometimes it's just like a click away. So make sure you do that. And also make sure, like Kenny said, and we cannot emphasize this enough, make sure that you actually volunteer or that you do an internship. Again, it's a trial and error, right? You test it, you find out whether this is for you, and if it's not, you continue to move on until you find again your niche, your passion. So that's the advice I have.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Denise. Thank you.
I think Denise pretty much stole a lot of words out of my mouth, but I'm going to try to build off what she was saying. So I've got a couple of things. Yeah, so definitely build great relationships with everyone, everyone that you interact with, your fellow students, your coworkers, because you never know where somebody is going to end up. Somebody who's low on the totem pole now might end up in a position where they can help you. They can give you an opportunity. They can connect you with someone who can help you. You never know where people are going to end up. So just always build and maintain those good relationships, because that's really what networking is. Whether that's with your friends or whether it's with your coworkers or fellow students, whatever it is, just maintain those good relationships. Also, just and should seem obvious, but do good work, like show your passion in your work and create opportunities for people to see your good work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the internships are, and the volunteer work is all about, and that's why it's so important, is because you're creating those opportunities for people to see your work. The issue with interviews is that for employers, on the employer side anyway, is that someone might come in and might interview like amazingly. They might give the best interview. It seemed like the most incredible candidate that they'd ever seen. And then when it comes time for them to actually come on board and do the work, they're terrible. Like they are lazy or incompetent or whatever it is. And that's why interviews are still a risk for employers, and that's why employers value recommendations that they get from people that they know, because when people can vouch for you who have seen your work, employers really value that more than you just giving a great interview, because they're just, if they don't know you other than outside of just you coming in and giving your word that you're a great worker and whatever, that's all they have to go on. And I'm sure a lot of employers have seen this plenty of times where someone has talked a great game and then come in and just not done a good job. So that's why you really want to create, as much as possible, create opportunities for people to see your work, because those people are the ones who are going to go on and be able to give you letters of recommendation, or vouch for you when it comes time, when they're in a position to be able to recommend you, or put in a good word for you for a position. So just create those opportunities. I think that's all I can say.
No, right on. Gosh, all of that was great words of wisdom, and I appreciate you both, truthfully, and to share this with our community out there. And thank you for coming on. It's never too late. There's always resources and help. You have good people like Denise and Kenneth doing amazing work in this space. And again, it's to only show that, hey, you can do it. It just starts with, that initial step and encouragement. And then showing others that you can do it also helps make that positive influence for others to want to join as well. Fantastic. That is it for today. Thank you both, Denise and Kenneth, for coming on. We're going to definitely have to invite you for another session sometime in the future. Aside from that, wish everybody a great rest of the day, and we'll catch you on the next talk session. Goodbye, everybody.
Everyone.